In the last video, we covered the first link in the value chain, the promise. What you sold, whether it's tied to an outcome, and whether it's defensible. Today, we're moving to the second link, delivered value. We're going to be here for a few videos because I have a few things to say. Think of delivered value as what your customer needs to achieve for the value to be real. And the first place that starts to fall down is with customer goals. Customer goals are the specific business outcomes the customer is trying to achieve by working with you, and whether your team has connected your product directly to it. Let me paint you a picture of how things start to fall apart at this juncture. So sales worked with an executive or a higher up to sell in the contract, which is awesome. They're targeting high, and they obviously were able to interest them through value. The executive quickly hands off implementation to their underlying team who weren't involved in the sale because they were busy, and the executive makes decisions fast. The CS team sits on an onboarding call with all of these new people, takes them through 2 or 3 slides to pitch them the demo, and then asks what they want to achieve by working together. The most senior person in the room says what they think sounds relevant and is lightly tied to their self-interest, and that is where we go off the rails. Your goal no longer ties to the promise. So when that executive is dragged into a business review a quarter or 2 from now, they're going to ask themselves why they bought you. And now you're in risk territory. Now, let's visit a different flavor of this same issue. I worked with an edtech company whose product was sold into L&D. They didn't sell in high, and learning and development departments can sometimes get budget to sign a new vendor, but their budgets are also some of the first to get cut when a company has to make cost-cutting decisions. When the CS team started implementing the client, the only goal that L&D ever had was usage. How many people logged in and how many courses were completed. Those are not business outcomes. Those are activities, right? So we're immediately in risk territory. And then when those cost-cutting decisions inevitably came around, that line item was really easy to strike out. So easy, in fact, that my customer's GRR when I started with them was 40%. Fun fact, it's the lowest GRR I've ever seen. Okay? What made it worse was that the usage goals weren't even being met because the functional leads, the heads of sales and CS, had never been a part of their sale. They had no reason to push their teams to show up to training. L&D had the contract, but no real organizational influence to drive adoption. And frankly, I've been guilty of that same dynamic in my career. If an L&D team tried to tell me for my CS team to take time out of their day, do less customer calls, and show up to a training that I hadn't vetted, my CS team wouldn't show up. Sorry to my former L&D partners, but that's the deal. So the usage for this customer was low, the goals were wrong, and when budget season came, their product was also going to be gone. To fix both the goals and the usage problem, we changed the post-sale approach entirely. Even though sales had sold into L&D, the CS team started including commercial functional leaders in onboarding and goal setting. The heads of sales and CS, the people who owned the real numbers and were accountable to a tangible result. One client, for example, had a sales leader who needed to increase their close rate. We matched their team to a negotiation program built by Chris Voss, who was one of the coaches at this firm. That was a direct line from the product to a number that a leader was being measured on. And that's a customer goal. Help them increase close rates through X, Y, and Z, right? The trainings. The accounts that went through that new process renewed in the 80s. Same product, which was great, by the way. It was incredible commercial coaching that really isn't seen. But that was a different goal. Now here's what best in class looks like. At Wunderkind, one of our customers needed to grow revenue and increase the proportion of revenue coming through their email channel because email is the cheapest and most controllable channel for marketers. So we settled on a specific dollar amount of last click email revenue, I'm getting technical, as measured by their own analytics provider, which equated to a return on ad spend that roughly doubled their other channels. That goal lived at the CMO level. It was tied to a number the business cared about, and it was specific enough that both sides knew exactly when it had been achieved. That's the difference between a customer goal that protects revenue and one that doesn't. Here's a quick test. Pick your 3 largest accounts. What is the business outcome your product is helping them achieve? Does it tie directly to revenue growth or cost reduction? And is it owned by someone who controls a budget? If you can't answer that clearly, you either don't have a customer goal, you have activity, or you have the wrong stakeholders. And as I always say, activity does not renew, but outcomes do. The next video covers the second component of delivered value and why value that isn't confirmed by the right stakeholder isn't actually value at all. Follow the channel so you don't miss it. I'm Erin Stavi, founder of Lakeshore Success Strategies. See you on the next one.